Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we unearth crucial insights from complex documents, turning them into clear, actionable knowledge. Today, we're tackling something central to one of life's biggest milestones. Buying a home.
Oh yeah, it's that moment, isn't it? You find the perfect place, you're excited, and then bam, you're hit with this stack of papers full of legal jargon. It can feel pretty overwhelming.
Absolutely. And that's exactly why we're diving deep today. A listener actually sent us the WB11 residential offer to purchase, specifically the Wisconsin form. Their mission, which we've happily accepted, is to understand all 49 sections of this beast.
Right, not just understand them, but also get a handle on how you actually fill them out.
Exactly. Think of this as your friendly guide, your roadmap to feeling confident about making that offer, not, completely lost.
We're going to walk you through it section by section. We'll point out some surprising details, things to watch out for, and basically give you the tools to use this document effectively. It's about giving you that practical edge.
Okay, let's jump right in. We're starting at the very top of the WB11, getting the basics right. Parties and property. First up, line 1, offer introduction, licensee and date. Okay, so this just identifies the agent writing the offer and the date, right? How do you feel that?
Yeah, simple enough. You just write in the date the offer is being prepared, but don't let that simplicity fool you. That date, it's the starting gun for pretty much every other deadline in the offer.
Okay. So getting that date right is step 1 for the whole timeline.
Precisely. Mess that up, and things like your inspection period or closing date could get skewed.
Got it. Then right below, line 2, agent relationship. This spells out who the agent represents, buyer, seller, or both. You just cross out the ones that don't apply.
Exactly. You strike out the roles that aren't applicable. And understanding this is key because it tells you whose interests that agent is legally obligated to protect. It clarifies loyalties, basically.
Makes sense. Then line 3, buyer identification. Just your full legal name here.
Yep.
Your full legal name or the exact legal name of the trust or LLC, if that's who's buying, needs to be spot on for the title later. No nicknames.
Good point. Now, the property itself. Lines 4 through 8 cover the property street address and location. Street address, city, village, or town, county.
Right. Pinpointing the exact property. Sounds obvious, but, you don't want any confusion about which house you're actually offering to buy. It also locks in the legal jurisdiction.
Okay, basics covered. Now for the meat of the deal. Defining what you're buying. Price, inclusions, and exclusions, which starts with the big one. Lines 9, 10, the purchase price. So you write the amount in words and in numbers.
Yes, both. And this is a built-in safety check. If there's ever a difference between the words and the numbers, the law says the written amount is the one that counts. So double-check that spelling.
Good tip. Okay, after the price, what actually comes with the house? Line 11 says all fixtures are included unless you say otherwise. Then lines 12, 16 are for listing additional items. What's the common mistake here? Assuming things are included. A fixture is generally something attached. If it's not attached, like the fridge, washer, dryer, maybe those nice patio chairs, and you want it, you have to list it right there on lines 12 to 16.
Even if it was in the online listing photos.
Especially then. Marketing materials don't count, which leads perfectly to lines 17, 18, the note on offer versus marketing. It flat out says this offer document overrides any ads or listings.
Okay, crystal clear. This paper is the final word.
That's the takeaway. Always rely on what's written in the offer.
Then the opposite. Lines 19, 23, not included in purchase price. This is where the seller lists what they're taking.
Exactly. If the seller wants to take that special dining room chandelier or maybe some specific landscaping features, they list it here. Also crucially, anything rented like a water softener or propane tank needs to be listed as not included.
Rented items, good point. Which is probably why lines 24, 25 have a specific caution about excluded or rented fixtures.
Right. It's a common source of arguments after closing. I thought the water softener came with the house. This caution forces everyone to be explicit up front.
And to help clarify, lines 26, 36 give a really detailed definition of fixture. There's tons of examples: garden bulbs, screen doors, built-in appliances, fences. It's pretty comprehensive.
It really is. And it helps define that gray area. Is that big custom mirror bolted to the wall a fixture? According to this definition, probably yes. Reading this helps you understand what you're getting by default.
And one more reminder just after that, lines 37, 38, another caution about retained fixtures, basically listed if you're taking it.
Yep. Clarity prevents conflict. That's the theme here.
The clock starts ticking. Binding acceptance and closing. Okay, moving on to a really crucial deadline, lines 39, 41, binding acceptance. This sets the deadline for the accepted offer to be delivered back to the buyer. What's the significance here?
This is huge. Until a copy of the offer, signed by everyone, is delivered back to the buyer or their agent by this exact date and time, there's technically no binding contract. The seller can keep showing the house, even accept another offer.
Wow. So it's not binding just when the seller signs, it's when it gets delivered back.
Correct. Delivery completes the loop.
Yeah.
And if that deadline is missed, the offer just expires. Poof.
And related to that, line 42 is a caution, offer withdrawal. It says the buyer can pull their offer back before that delivery happens.
Right. It gives the buyer an out if something changes last minute. Maybe they see another house, get cold feet before the deal is locked in.
Then lines 43, 44 define acceptance, which is when all buyers and sellers have signed identical copies.
Just reinforcing that everyone needs to be on board and signed up.
Okay, and another important timing note, lines 45, 46. Caution, deadlines calculation. This warns that many other deadlines start counting from the date of acceptance. Why the heads up?
Because you need to think realistically about those timelines. If you set a 10-day inspection contingency and acceptance happens late on a Friday, you've immediately lost 2 weekend days. It's a reminder to build in enough buffer time for everything.
Smart. All right, the finish line. Lines 47, 50, closing details. This sets the closing date and location. Anything tricky here?
Not too tricky, but practical. You fill in the target closing date. And there's a helpful bit. If that date lands on a weekend or holiday, it automatically bumps to the next business day. The location is usually chosen by the seller, unless you agree otherwise.
Now this next one looks serious. Lines 51, 54, CS Auction. Wire transfer fraud. Big bold letters. It warns about verifying wiring instructions. How big a risk is this?
It's a massive risk, and it's frighteningly common. Scammers are incredibly good at intercepting emails and sending fake wiring instructions that look totally real. They might impersonate the title company or even your agent.
And if you wire funds to the wrong place?
It's devastating. That money is usually gone, vanished. The caution stresses you must independently verify those instructions. Call the title company or attorney using a phone number you know is legitimate, not one from an email you just received. Never rely solely on emailed instructions. And notice the form says licensees aren't responsible for this.
Wow. Okay, definitely a critical warning, making it official. Earnest money and strict deadlines. Let's talk earnest money, the good faith deposit. Lines 55, 59 give you earnest money options. Either you provide it with the offer or within so many days after acceptance. How do you fill this part?
You check the box for which option applies. If you're including it with the offer, you write the amount. If you'll deliver it later, you write the amount and specify the number of days. The default is 5 days if you leave it blank.
And who holds this money? That's line 60, 62, earnest money holder. Listing firm, drafting firm, or someone else.
Right. You strike out the options that don't apply. Usually it's one of the real estate firms involved or maybe a title company specified as other. They act as a neutral third party holding the funds in escrow.
And there's another caution on line 63, 65 about earnest money escrow if a firm isn't holding it. Why?
Because the standard rules in the offer about how that money gets dispersed might not apply if, say, an attorney is holding it without a separate escrow agreement. Using a firm provides built-in procedures if the deal goes sideways.
Okay. Line 66 is simple. Balance of purchase price paid at closing. But then lines 67 through 87 get detailed about earnest money disbursement and legal rights. What's the gist?
This lays out the rules for the firm holding the money. When do they release it? If the offer isn't accepted, they give it back to the buyer. At closing, it usually goes towards the purchase price. If the deal doesn't close, it gets complicated.
How so?
The firm follows the contract rules, often requiring agreement from both buyer and seller, or a court order, to release the funds if there's a dispute. The key thing is the firm's disbursement doesn't decide who's legally entitled to the money. That might need lawyers or small claims court. And both parties agree not to sue the firm if they disperse in good faith.
Got it. Now for a powerful phrase. Lines 88, 93. Time is of the essence. This applies to certain key deadlines. What does that mean practically?
It means those specific deadlines are absolute, rock solid, not around or about, but by that exact date and time. Binding acceptance, earnest money delivery, closing date, contingency deadlines if this phrase applies. Missing the deadline by even a minute is a breach of contract.
So you generally want this to apply to ensure things move forward. How do you fill it?
Usually, yes. You confirm it applies by striking out as applicable next to the listed items, making them strict. If for some odd reason you wanted a deadline to be more flexible, you'd need to specifically list it as an exception here, but that's rare.
Understanding property condition, disclosures and inspections. Okay, let's shift to the condition of the property. Lines 94, 97 mention the real estate condition report requirement. Sellers in Wisconsin generally have to provide this, right?
Yes, for properties with one-FAR dwelling units, sellers must give buyers a report disclosing known defects unless they meet certain exemptions. Then, lines 97, 104 explain the buyer's rescission rights.
Meaning you can back out.
Exactly. If you don't get that report within 10 days of acceptance, or if you get it after submitting your offer and it reveals defects you didn't know about, you typically have a short window, like 2 business days, to rescind your offer and get your earnest money back. It's a major buyer protection.
Okay. Then lines 105, 111, property condition representations. Here, the seller formally states they haven't hidden anything other than what's in that report or listed here. How do you feel this?
The seller fills in the date of their condition report. You, the buyer, indicate if you received it before signing the offer. And this is where the seller must list any other known conditions affecting the property that weren't in the report.
And what are these conditions affecting the property or transaction? Lines 112 all the way to 177 provide a massive definition.
Yeah, it's exhaustive. It covers everything you can think of: structural problems, roof, electrical, plumbing, wells, septic systems, environmental hazards like asbestos, lead paint, radon, mold, but also things like zoning issues, boundary line disputes, restrictive covenants, pending property tax increases. The list goes on.
Basically, anything that could materially impact the property's value or your decision to buy.
That's the idea. It sets a very broad standard for disclosure.
All right, inspections. Lines 178, 192 cover inspections and testing in general. It defines the difference, gives you access rights, and says you have to share reports. Key difference between inspection and test.
An inspection is typically visual, looking around, observing. A test involves taking a sample and analyzing it, like testing water quality or air for radon.
Okay, now for the big one for buyers. Lines 193205, the inspection contingency. This lets you make the offer dependent on a satisfactory inspection. How does this work?
This is your main tool for due diligence. You check the box to make the offer contingent on a home inspection. You can also list specific things to inspect, like maybe the chimney or swimming pool. Then you set a deadline, say 15 days, by which you have to get the inspection done and deliver the report, and, if necessary, a notice of defects to the seller.
So if the inspection finds problems,
you use that formal notice of defects, as explained in lines 206, 215. This isn't just sending the report. It's a specific notice listing the defects you object to. A defect here has a specific definition on lines 445, 447, basically a condition that significantly impacts value or health safety, or shortens the life of the property. You can't object to things you already knew about, though.
and what happens after you send that notice of defects? That's lines 216, 2226, seller's right to cure. The seller might get a chance to fix things.
Right. This is a crucial choice you make when writing the offer. You strike either shall or shall not to decide if the seller has the right to cure defects. If you strike shall not and you find defects in object, the offer is dead. If you leave shall, the default, the seller gets a chance, usually 10 days, to decide if they will fix the things you listed.
So if they say yes, the deal moves forward with them fixing things. If they say no or don't respond,
then the offer becomes null and void. You get your earnest money back. It's a negotiation point right from the start.
makes sense. Similar idea for lines 227, 246, the radon testing contingency.
Very similar process, just specific to radon. Offer is contingent on tests being below EPA action levels. You specify who pays for the test, usually buyer, set a deadline for results, default 20 days, and decide if the seller has the right to cure. Default is yes, by installing a mitigation system. Given radon risks, it's a common and recommended contingency.
Securing your purchase, financing, appraisal, and other contingencies. All right, let's talk financing. For most buyers, lines 248, 295 cover the financing commitment contingency. This makes the offer dependent on getting a loan. What are you filling here?
This is critical if you need a mortgage. You specify the exact loan terms you need to be approved for, the loan amount or percentage of value, the type like conventional, FHA, VA, the term like 30 years, amortization period, and crucially, the maximum initial monthly payment for principal and interest you're willing to accept.
You also specify a deadline to get that commitment letter, right?
Yes, absolutely. And you agree to apply promptly and pay customary costs. This section protects you from being forced to buy if you genuinely can't get the financing you need.
Lines 260, 269 deal with rate types fixed or adjustable with parameters. Then lines 270 or 277 define satisfaction. What's key here?
Satisfaction means you, the buyer, deliver a copy of your signed loan commitment to the seller by the deadline. Just the lender sending it isn't enough. And even if the commitment has conditions, delivering it generally satisfies the contingency.
And if you don't deliver it on time, lines 278, 283 give the seller termination rights.
Right. If the deadline passes and you haven't delivered that commitment, the seller can terminate the offer. It keeps the process moving.
Lines 284, 295 discuss what happens if financing is unavailable, including a rare option for seller financing. But what if you're paying cash?
Then you use lines 296, 307, no financing commitment contingency. You check this box, but you still need to provide proof to the seller within a certain number of days, default is 7, that you actually have the funds to close.
Does that proof need to be a bank statement?
It could be, or a letter from a financial institution or other agreed-upon documentation. And importantly, this section clarifies that skipping the financing contingency does not automatically give you an appraisal contingency.
Good distinction. Which brings us to lines 308, 327, the appraisal contingency. Essential for finance deals, right?
Absolutely vital. This makes the offer contingent on the property appraising for at least the purchase price. If it appraises low, the lender won't fund the full loan based on your offer price.
So what happens then? How do you fill this section?
You set a deadline for delivering the appraisal report if it's low, along with your objection. Like the inspection contingency, you decide if the seller shall or shall not have the right to cure. If they do have the right, the default, they can choose to lower the purchase price to the appraised value within a set number of days, default 5. If they don't, or don't have the right, the offer is void.
Okay. Another common situation. Lines 328, 334, closing of buyer's property contingency. If you need to sell your current house first.
Right. You fill in the address of the property you need to sell and the deadline by which that sale must close. If it doesn't close by then, this offer becomes void unless you waive the contingency and show proof you can still buy, like getting a bridge loan.
But that makes the offer less attractive to sellers, so they might insist on a bump clause, lines 335, 347.
Exactly. If this clause is included, the seller can accept a secondary offer. If they do, they give you notice, the bump. You then have a specific number of hours, default 72, to drop your contingencies, usually the sale of your property contingency, maybe others, and often provide proof you can close anyway, like that bridge loan approval.
And if you can't or won't do that in time,
your offer becomes null and void, and the seller moves forward with the secondary offer. It forces the first buyer to firm up their position. You specify the hours and exactly what needs to be waived or provided.
Okay, and lines 348, 354 cover being a secondary offer from the start. Basically, you're waiting in line.
Yep. You're next if the primary deal falls through. You usually have a right to withdraw before you get bumped up to primary status.
Quick one. Homeowners Association, lines 355, 358. Just a heads up about fees.
Right. Be aware of potential ongoing HOA dues, and this line specifies who pays any one-time transfer fee associated with the sale buyer or seller. Default is buyer. You strike out who doesn't pay.
Financial finalities and legalities. All right, nearing the end. Let's talk about splitting costs at closing. Lines 359, 381, closing prorations, dividing things like taxes, rent, fuel.
Yeah, this details how ongoing expenses are split based on the closing date. The trickiest one is usually real estate taxes. There are different ways to calculate the proration based on last year's bill, current assessment, or even the sale price.
How do you choose which tax proration method?
You check the box for the method you agree on. It can make a difference in who pays what, especially if taxes are expected to change significantly, so it's worth understanding the options. You can also list other specific items to be prorated, like condo fees.
Got it. Then ensuring clear ownership. Lines 382, 415, title evidence. Seller provides clear title, usually via warranty deed, and buys title insurance for the buyer.
Typically, yes. The seller provides an owner's policy of title insurance, proving the title is clear except for standard exceptions or any others listed here, lines 388, 390. It also covers the gap endorsement protection between the title search and recording your deed.
Who pays for that gap coverage?
You specify by striking out seller's or buyer's cost. The default is the seller pays. This section also outlines timelines for delivering the title commitment and what happens if defects are found that need clearing before closing.
Okay, now the big finale section. Lines 416 all the way to 621. Special assessments, leased property, and general provisions. Lots packed in here.
It really is the wrap-up section covering many remaining important details.
Starts with special assessments, other expenses.
Okay.
Lines 416, 425. This is about things like new sewer lines or sidewalks.
Exactly. Public improvement costs.
Yeah.
This clarifies who pays assessments levied before closing versus those levied after. It also defines other expenses, which are similar one-time or ongoing fees for improvements.
Then leased property, lines 426, 430, if tenants are involved.
Right. If the property's rented, the seller assigns the leases and transfers security deposits and prepaid rents to you at closing. You need to check if the lease is written or oral and fill in the terms if necessary.
Key definitions, lines 431, 450. Defines terms like actual receipt, business day, deadlines, defect. Seems important for clarity.
Absolutely. These definitions prevent arguments over interpretation later. Knowing what actual receipt means is crucial for delivery deadlines, for example.
Optional provisions and dimensions, lines 451, 457. Just says check boxes carefully and verify square footage yourself.
Pretty much, don't rely on listed dimensions, measure if it's critical to you, and make sure any optional clauses you want are actually checked or filled in.
Information distribution and maintenance, lines 458, 467. Lets agents share copies and says the seller keeps the property up.
Yes. Allows sharing with lenders, appraisers, etc., and obligates the seller to maintain the property in its current condition until closing, minus normal wear and tear. No letting the lawn die or the pipes freeze.
Property damage and walkthrough, lines 468, 481. What if something happens before closing, like a tree falls on the roof and the walkthrough?
It outlines options depending on the extent of damage. Insurance proceeds might go to the buyer, or the price could be adjusted, or the offer could become void if damage is severe. And crucially, it guarantees you the right to a final walkthrough shortly before closing.
Why is that walkthrough so vital?
It's your last chance to verify the property's condition is as agreed, that fixtures are still there, personal property is gone, and any required repairs were actually done. Absolutely do not skip this.
Occupancy, lines 482, 486. Usually at closing, property should be broom swept.
Sets the expectation for handover condition. No piles of trash left behind.
Default and legal advice, lines 487, 506. Outlines what happens if someone breaches the contract and strongly urges getting legal advice.
Very important. It spells out potential remedies if someone defaults, like suing for damages or specific performance, and it repeats the critical advice. Agents can't give legal advice. If you have questions about your rights or the contract's enforceability, talk to a Wisconsin real estate attorney.
Entire contract, lines 507, 509, means only what's written counts.
Exactly. No verbal side deals. Everything must be in this offer or a written amendment.
Sex offender registry notice, lines 510, 512. Standard notification.
Provides the website for due diligence if desired.
Now, FIRPTA Foreign Investment in Real Property Tax Act, lines 513, 542. This sounds complicated. Tax withholding if the seller is foreign.
It can be very complicated, and the risk falls on the buyer. If the seller is a foreign person under tax law, the buyer might be required to withhold up to 15% of the purchase price and send it to the IRS. Failure to do so could make the buyer liable for the seller's tax.
Wow. So how do you handle this?
The seller normally certifies their non-foreign status right in the offer. If they can't, or if you have any doubts, you absolutely need to consult with a qualified tax advisor or attorney before closing to ensure compliance. Don't ignore this.
Okay. Seller payment of compensation to buyer's firm, lines 543, 547. Seller can agree to pay some of the buyer's agent fees.
Yes, this is a way for the seller to contribute, often as a negotiation point. You fill in the amount or percentage. It clarifies this doesn't create an agency relationship between that firm and the seller.
Then a big blank space, additional provisions contingencies, lines 548, 570, for anything unique.
Precisely. If you need a contingency for, say, zoning approval for a home business or agreement on specific repairs not covered elsewhere or anything unique to your deal, it gets written in here.
Delivery of documents and notices, lines 571, 591, specifies how things get sent, personal, fax, email, etc.
Yes, and defines when delivery is considered complete, actual receipt. Very important for meeting those time is of the essence deadlines. You fill in the specific delivery address, mails, fax numbers for each party.
And finally, addenda and signatures, lines 592, 621, lists any attached addenda and has the signature lines.
Right. If you have addenda, like for that lead paint disclosure or condo association docs, they're listed here. Then all buyers sign and date. The seller then signs to accept, or initials to reject, or initials and signs a counteroffer. This is where the deal gets sealed.
Wow. Okay, we actually did it. We walked through all 49 sections of the WB11 residential offer to purchase. From identifying everyone involved to handling money, contingencies, property condition, and all those legal details. You should now have a much clearer picture of this crucial document and, importantly, how to tackle filling it out.
Yeah, it's dense, but breaking it down hopefully makes it less intimidating. Remember, this isn't just paperwork. Understanding these lines empowers you, protects you, and can save you a lot of headaches and potentially money down the road.
Absolutely. And this deep dive really highlights how much legal weight, financial complexity, and personal circumstance gets packed into the process of buying a home. It kind of makes you think, doesn't it? What other everyday documents, things we sign perhaps without a second thought, hold similar hidden layers just waiting to be understood? And what critical insights might they reveal about our rights and responsibilities?